I guess I can clip this.
Yeah, just right next to the other.
Okay.
If you have any troubles, flag me down.
All right. I'm really humbled to be here because I'm not with Fish and Wildlife or Texas Parks or Flood Control District. I'm just a guy that grows plants. So it was awesome being asked to do this. But anyways, I want to start off with a little history. I'm from Damon, formerly known as Damons Mound. It's a salt dome. And curiosity got the best of me when I was working in Sweeney at the chemical plant, driving by it every day. I thought it was a landfill because, you know, all of a sudden this rise goes up, and it was in the winter when a lot of leaves are off the tree. Well, that Damons Mound, I drove up there one day, me and my coworker Ramon, and we found a historical marker talking about Damon. And basically, Jaime likes to talk about, you know, San Jacinto battle being fought on the prairie. Well, this salt dome stuck out of the prairie. And if you go to the corner of 36 and 1462, all the overgrazed cow pastures, you'll see the pimple mounds all over them, because that was a prairie, and that thing stuck out of the prairie. And so how he got here was in 1831, Samuel Damon arrived at the mouth of the Brazos, and they told him there will be no more Anglo immigration to Texas. This is by the Mexican government. Stephen F. Austin's land grants were from the government of Spain, so they didn't hold water anymore. So Damon jumped overboard at night, made his way through the prairie to the mound, and ran into Abraham Darst, one of the original Stephen F. Austin colonists, and he was building a house, so Damon helped him build this home, and built his own home there, and then married his daughter. So it all worked out for him jumping overboard. But if you ever hear of the fort in Fort Bend County, the fort in Fort Bend County was actually a blockhouse at the river crossing. And Damon stayed behind to slow Santa Anna down by, you know, keeping that river crossing blocked, which was in Richmond. So anyways, what he's known for was he stole the bells out of Mission Concepcion to make bullets, and he melted one of the bells down and yielded useless dross. So he hid the other bell in his barn. Well, Santa Anna burned his barn because it was full of goods, stores, and the bell was saved. And it was a historical society cleaned this bell up in 1880. That's how old this thing is. And if you want to see the bell, it's in the Rosenberg Library, which is on Galveston Island, another prairie. Galveston Island, when the European settlers arrived, had 3 trees. And there was one live oak on the west end they used for navigation. It was all prairie. So anyways, so I found, by working in this Rosenberg Library, built in 1904, when Henry Rosenberg died, he had 20 buildings built. He had the War Memorial on Broadway. You know where that is? When you're going down Broadway in Galveston, that War Memorial, he had that built. These 2 guys worked on his will for 10 years building buildings. They built the 1904 library. In segregated Galveston, he built the first branch, which was a Rosenberg Library for colored children at the school a couple miles away. So it was the first branch library in Texas. And they also have the bells there on the first floor. That library is 4 stories. It's like a museum. And it's a national treasure. If you've never been there, you gotta go. So I wanna show you a few things that, they have a book sale in October, and you can buy regular books like this, you know, the Wildflower of Houston, a lot of you have this. This was $1. Wow. Yeah, this Texas Wildflower was mint condition, that was $5. Most of the books are 1, 2, or 3. Then I bought this National Geographic Traveler, and the reason why I wanted this one, this was $1. It has the 1994, they had poll of your favorite state park in the 50 states, and Brazos Bend got in the magazine as one of the 10 top parks in the nation by People's Choice. So that's why I got this. And then Drea, my wife Andrea, she got this awesome book, 1904. This is Birds of North America, printed in 1904. It was reprinted in 1935. The bookmark is the ivory-billed woodpecker. And she paid a whopping $3 for this. Yeah, so that's pretty awesome stuff. And so they have a book sale every October. But what we've done over there ever since Ike is restore all the old architecture that got covered up. Usually when things get old, they put drop ceilings in like this. They're taking it out and exposing all the old architecture. Phase 7 will be the last phase of that, which is coming up. So I would encourage anybody to go there. And the book sale's in October. When you're my age, it's right around the corner. It'll be here before we know it. So anyways, yeah, about Flo Hanna, she, last time I talked to her, I got interested in growing plants, and I talked to her about her business, and after 3 years, I was at Wildscape Workshop, and she said, I told Flo, I've been doing this for 3 years, I haven't made any money. And she goes, don't worry about it, I lose money every year. So, anyways, this, if you know German, Morgenstern, my last name is Morning Star, that's where I got the name of the business. And then what's wrong with this map? This map you'll see in a lot of places, but the tall grass prairie ends in Fort Worth. Yeah, I guess they missed 9 million acres. This map is in Caprock Canyon State Park. The same map is in Custer State Park, South Dakota. And they think that's where the prairie ended. They missed 9 million acres, went from just about north of Mexico in 150 miles in Louisiana. So that was the tall grass prairie. And what we're doing is we're trying to save this by basically collecting the seeds, growing the plants, starting pocket prairies, which are real important in butterfly gardens in people's yards, because we need to have them from Canada to Mexico border. So because of all the construction and everything where this habitat's being destroyed. There's less than 1% left, but Nash Prairie is 8 miles south of me. Mootney Prairie is about the same distance. They're both Nature Conservancy bought them, and anybody else wants to go out there, all you got to do is send me an email or a text, and we can go. It's right close to my house. But anyways, the next thing I'll talk about is seed collection. And that's Drea. She found the mother lode of brown seed paspalum up there. It almost looks like a hill, but that's Nash Prairie and coneflower, and you can see Rattlesnake Master in that other picture. So we collect on these prairies, and Nash has a lot of seed collections. And railroad right away. I saw Tom's group on the side of the railroad. They take them tubs on Highway 3 and just south of Ellington Airport. And I seen them dragging tubs off the side of the road and taking them to Armand Bayou, where they chop them up in pieces and repot them. And a couple years ago, they passed 250,000 1-gallon plants in the ground. That's a bunch. So, anyways, let's see where I am. I want to talk one thing about this fertilizer, because there's a whole program on it. It's where did I put my bag? Oh yeah. This is Dr. Earth we started using. It's because it's got the mycorrhizae in it. That is a fungus that grows on the roots of plants. It's been around since the dawn of plants for 450 million years, but we've kind of destroyed it, so we have to put it back. And this is really important for like green milkweed, because if you plant green, I got a whole 50 separated green milkweed, Asclepias viridis right there in that tray. And if you plant those they'll act like an annual if there's no mycorrhizae in the soil. And a lot of it's been destroyed, so it has to be put back. And Home Depot, Lowe's doesn't carry it. I don't know why. And anyways, so I'm using a pinch of this in every single plant I grow now. Grasses make their own mycorrhizae, but I put it in there anyways, and it's really good all around, just a good fertilizer. So after we collect seeds, let's see, we got some more. Yeah, there's a Nash Prairie tract. That corn whiskey was actually agriculture, and recently they've taken down the fence. The bull pasture also, in the bull trap, you see that? So this and this are going back to prairie. So this 250 acres could become 400 eventually. This looks really good. Getting better, I mean, it hasn't been agriculture in quite a while. And of course, the first thing they did was they have to pull down fences. All the prairies were destroyed because of barbed wire fence. Birds land on the fence, they drop the woody seeds, and what do you get? Trees. And this would all be trees if it wasn't a hay meadow. That's the only reason this prairies are still around, is because they were hay meadows. The Germans knew at the turn of the century that this was totally drought tolerant. They could always depend on it for hay. So that's why this has never been plowed, grazed, or, and it's pristine. It really is. And Susan Conity, who's a steward over it, if you come out there with muddy shoes, she won't let you on the prairie. And also, some guys walked in the ditch, and she went at them with a whisk broom on their shoes. Yeah, they just don't want you walking in the ditches and carrying stuff into there. So it's that high quality. It's awesome. So anyways, I collect, my Gulf Muley seed all comes from this. Prairie, a lot of seeds. I got the purple sneezeweed there this year. It was kind of hard to find, but we found some. And but basically, these are more Nash Prairie. That's a Texas coneflower, Rebecca Texana Leatrice, Sassa Dota, the thin leaf Leatrice. We collect that. One thing about growing Leatrice, you have to let them form a corm before you separate them. It makes a little bump at the stem if you separate them before that. And I learned this after I had separated like 36 of them out. And I went to a class for Tom Solomon, and he told me that. And he said they're going to die, and they all died except for one. So he was right. You got to wait. They just sit in the pot for 90 days or more till they form that little corm, then they'll separate them. So that's one thing about growing Leatrice. This is perennis seed that I collect on my property. There's, oh geez. Let me go back. Okay. The perennis seed, you see it has no silk. And this stuff grows really easy. No refrigeration. Viridis, got to stick it in the refrigerator. I had the 50 cell of Viridis right there in that flat. I had those in the refrigerator for about 6 weeks. And then I put way too many. I bumped up like 400 of them. But that's 50 I brought, so. But, you know, it takes 2 years for those to be ready. You have to let them grow, fade over the next winter, and then when they reemerge, then they're ready. So it takes a long time. But when you're doing it every year, you always got the next year's batch coming along. So that's a good thing. So more seeds. Let's see. This is a linearis. You see how that pod's upright? Whoops, I'm pushing the wrong button. The pod is upright. We bagged 10 jewelry bags on Nash Prairie, and I went back and there was only 5, and Tom Solomon thinks somebody stole them. I don't think people would go out there and steal the jewelry bags. I think it was really windy. I found a couple of them that had blown off on the road. They may still be there, but anyways, and that's one milkweed seed, which I caught the light with. Most of these, I just use my phone taking pictures. I don't lug the camera around when I'm out there collecting, but I caught the light on that milkweed seed really good. And plant ID with pictures. You know, you got iNaturalist. You can send a picture in and get an ID or friends. Now, see the one on the right? I collected that off the railroad tracks on Highway 6, and I didn't know what it was. So I cut it off. I put it on a white piece of paper. I sent Susan Conde the picture, and she got back to me, that's clustered bush mint. You know, and so that's how I learned that. And starting off, I was a terrible gardener, absolutely terrible. When I started growing, me and Drea started a vegetable garden. She wanted to grow organic. I thought I want all my options on the table, so I went out and bought some 2100, which is caustic, it's terrible stuff. And my plants, I went to that source of all knowledge, AM radio, and yeah. And I listened and they said, you got mites, you got to spray. So I went out and bought some poison that ends with CIDE in Latin, means killer. So I bought something that had ended with CIDE on the bottle, and I sprayed it on my tomatoes. The leaves all curled up, and the next week, the talk was on phototoxic burn. That's when the sun hits a chemical on the plant, and my father-in-law came over and said, what's wrong with your tomatoes? And I was sick, just sick. I thought, I can't, my dad was such a great gardener, I thought, what, you know what? So I was driving through Stafford, and I saw this Gardenville store. I went in there, I met Mark Bowen. A lot of you guys know him. Guys and gals know Mark Bowen. He was in Urban Harvest. And I told him everything I learned on AM radio, and he said, come to my garden class on Wednesday. I said, okay. I walked out of there. I thought, all my ideas have to go out the window because it's not working. And so I went in there with an open mind, you know, not telling them everything I learned, and just listened. And we had like 2 meetings, and then Dr. Bob Randall wanted to start Urban Harvest. So we merged our little garden club with his, and that's how Urban Harvest got started. And so Urban Harvest is a great group. I sell at the farmer's market on the east side on Saturdays, sell plants and vegetables and citrus and whatever we got. But anyways, they always encourage other organizations. When I went to their meetings, they had flyers on Native Plant Society. That's how I got in Native Plant Society. Then when I was in Native Plant Society, I saw flyers on Native Prairie Association. So I joined that. So, and basically, my first Wildscape workshop was number 1 or number 2, it was like 18 years ago. And it was at the Bel Air Civic Center, yeah. But anyways, it's really grown, and it's really awesome to see. And now I come first full circle from learning from Urban Harvest to selling at their market. So that's how you can find out. And basically, I had to learn by volunteering. You know, I volunteered at, I went to classes with Tom Solomon on growing plants. The main thing you gotta know, you can't put a 1-gallon plant in potting soil, it'll die. You can't get enough water in potting soil to keep them alive. So when we bump these up to gallons, you gotta use this sandy loam topsoil, which is real heavy. My plants are heavy. I show the people at the market, pick it up, you know, they weigh 5 pounds or more, they're heavy. So, and anything less than that, it won't work. So that's when you bump them up. From these, they're going to go into a sandy loam topsoil. But this map, I meant to bring a copy to pass this around, but this is from the Milkweed book, the Perennis I collect on my property. And if you look at here, right in there, the range goes from a couple counties south of us all the way up to southern Indiana and Illinois. And that Perennis is following the flyway of the monarchs. You can see that arc going up to Canada. And so they follow that Perennis. They strip all my plants. Flo told me I moved the caterpillars off of my plant stock, and I move them to my little prairie area. And I saw how fast the leaves came back. I quit fighting them. They'll strip a Perennis plant, every leaf, and in 30 days, all the leaves will come back if the weather's warm. So I got some at home there, green sticks. They've been stripped. But they're going to be perfectly good plants in a couple of months. So anyways, that's the Perennis. Now, let's see. Oh yeah, if you need you got to clean your seeds and dry them. And one good way is hire indentured servants like my wife and my mother. My 92-year-old mother-in-law, and that's a whole tray of Rattlesnake Master. And I'll show her a way of doing seeds, and she comes up with something better. You know, like I was taking these apart, and I gave her leather gloves to rub the Rattlesnake Master behind her hand. She said, "You don't have to take them apart." She would take the whole 3 or 4 at a time and rub them and clean the seeds. And then Gulf Coast penstemon, which I got those that flat of 24 that have been bumped up. I'm sorry, that's 18 plants there. Those are frozen solid. They're hard as a rock. And look how good they look. You can look at them after the meeting. But anyways, I told her how to crush them, and they're little hard. The seeds are real tiny, but they're in these hard pods. And she went and got Drea's mortar and pestle out of the kitchen, and she put them in there and started doing that and breaking them apart and pouring them on the tray. So she's awesome. I mean, she did a lot of work for us. And she came over Thanksgiving and did nothing but clean seeds. This is after we opened, this one on the right is after we opened Christmas presents on Christmas Day. Yeah, she works for Food and Wine. Yeah. She only drinks 1 glass a day, so it's cheap. You know, one bottle, whole weekend of Thanksgiving, and yeah. So here's my marking deal about the Perennis on my property. I got 7 acres in Damon, and this stake, I pull these out and repaint them. And if you look here, you can see the green pods hanging there. They're big. And like this one, I could put 1 jewelry bag on it up there, and they're big green pods, no silk. But the first pod I ever watched of this, Susan and Barbara Willie told me, watch that pod. When it start to get a brown crack, collect it. And well, by the time I looked at it again, it had broken open, and I found 2 seeds in the grass. I don't know where the rest went, probably with the wind. But I decided it had to be something better. So I tried cheesecloth, doesn't work too good. So jewelry bags. When Dre retired, she gave me all her old pantyhose, which I tie in a knot, cut them off, make a sock with a twisty. And I twist the sock over there. A lot of times when these are ripe, I'll walk out there. I got 1 more bag. I had to map where I got them all. I got 1 more bag out there right now. But a lot of times when they're ripe, the bag will actually just fall on the ground. You pick it up, bring it in, and dump them. And so that's a Monarch on the Perennis. That was actually in Brazos Bend Park. In an area, it was so wet they didn't mow this area. And I saw this and I went back and it was mowed. Yeah. But that was in a mowed area where this one popped up. So basically, the milkweed book says these are fastly disappearing in Texas, but I see they're all over my property and they're all over Brazos Bend. The funny thing is, this plant will not be found on Nash Prairie, 400 acres down there. It grows, it's a woodland edge plant. You can see the tree in the background. In the ditches by Nash Prairie, on the sides of the road, before the Nash Prairie, there's Perennis. After the Nash Prairie and the ditches getting closer to 35, there's Perennis, but there's none on the prairie because it doesn't grow out in it's a woodland edge plant, which is really neat. And it's really easy to grow, no refrigeration needed. One of my favorites, rosin weed sunflower, get almost 10 months of bloom. They were blooming up until the first freeze. And they're green and growing in the pots right now. I mean, through this weather. Leatrice, Sassa Dota. So this is on my property, the spring obedient plant, which I didn't know about plants when I first joined the Native Prairie Association, and I was not a really good taxonomist. I know plants now that I've grown from seed and see what they look like young all the way up, and that's how I learned them. But I used to, and a lady told me she remembered this, I used to cut flowers, take them to an NPAT meeting in a vase, said we got to have some color. And Glenn McCord said, wow, that's nice. ironweed. So I wrote down ironweed in my book. That's how I learned it. I had no idea. Every time I used a book to look something up, I got it wrong, you know? And it's not that easy, but once I had, and I did that more than once. The spring opediate plant I need, that's a Leatrice pycnostachya. That's a 2-year-old plant. 1-year plant usually has 1 stalk, but that one, and that's my front yard. This is flats in my greenhouse. Pardon me? Oh yeah, the recycling bin, I couldn't find it. They said it's here somewhere. It used to be in the corner over here. It's inside the gates? All right. That's where I get a lot of my trays and pots is out of that recycling bin. I went to find it today in the corner and it wasn't there. So anyways, I needed 4-inch pots one time, and I came here and they had just dumped the container. Sometimes it gets really treacherous getting in there. But they had dumped it, and a landscaper had stacked, not thrown them in there or threw them over the wall. He stacked them neatly, 4-inch trays, those 18 trays that hold 4-inch pots, and 4-inch pots that were used like once. And I filled the whole back of my pickup truck. Yeah, so I never need them again. I mean, it's just perfect timing. Now, Tom Solomon, these little trays we like to use, like that 24 over there, he's got a mole out here that goes in there and gets them for him. So I never find trays in there. This guy gets them for Tom. He lives in this area. Tom won't tell me who it is. So, yeah, so he gets the trays, but he's given me a lot of these trays. At Greenhouse Megastore is where I bought, like, you see that milkweed, how tall that tray is? That's a 50 cell. It's like 4 inches tall, because milkweeds have deep tap roots. So that one I bought at Greenhouse Megastore, I bought a dozen of those. And they fitted the 11 trays. And basically, I got the milkweed are in a 50 cell round. I got a 50 cell square. The other one's a 32 cell. So basically, you can put these plants in anything, but once they come up and you want to separate them, then you can separate them into these other. If you use 4-inch pots like I used on a small scale, that's fine, but it uses a lot of potting soil, where these other little trays you can see just uses a little bit. So you could put those in there. And Peaceful Valley GrowOrganic.com has a lot of supplies. But I found these 2 places trustworthy online sales, you know, to get things you can't find in the dumpster or whatever. Yeah. So also, when I'm setting up these cells, there's you can use potting soil. If you got a lot of the organic potting soil is full of wood chips, which wood sucks the nitrogen out of the soil. So the wood chips are bad in anything. So you got to pull them out or use different variety of. I'm trying to think of that. ProMix, thank you, Drea. ProMix has it's mycoactive. Whenever you see that MYCO, that's a mycorrhizae. Mycoactive, the ProMix, you get that at nurseries, it's expensive. And so there's also this seed germinating mix for seeds that I've been buying lately. And Walmart has this little bag of it. I just bought one. ProMix, Walmart has the big bales for like half what I was paying at the nursery. So, anyways, the compressed bales and this the seed germinating mix is perfect for seeds. And what we do is like Tom taught me, I put this cheap stuff in the cell, get it wet, and I put a little bit of this really expensive seed germinating mix on top, put the seeds in there. I never bury the seeds. I was taught that nature doesn't bury the seeds, it just drops them. So I lay them on top, except for like the papery shell seeds like Perennis and rosinweed sunflower. I found out those do better covered up a little bit for germination. So let's see, what we got next? So soil resources, local dirt yard, you really got to look at the piles good. I found this awesome dirt. I just bought 10 yards. It's called Prima Mix. And it was a little mom and pop place in Clute. Well, Living Earth Technologies is buying all the dirt yards. I don't know if you noticed that. Well, they bought this one in Clute. Clute's the only one that has this Prima Mix. It's black. It's just super, the best I've had yet. So I got 10 yards of it, and I keep it in my barn so it didn't get full of weeds, and that's where I pot things up. But so Starbucks has this program, Grinds for Your Garden. Coffee grinds are 10-2-2, slightly acidic. They're not real acid like people think, and it's good. We mix that in, and different stores won't do it. You know, they were all given this tub to put the grinds in, and some of the stores don't participate. They said we don't have any use for it or no demand. But like Galveston, the one on Galveston Island, they set the big bags out by the dumpster in the little thing, and you just tell them I'm going back there. And so one time I went there, there's 5 bags that were so heavy I could hardly pick them up. So I had all kinds of coffee grinds, which are also good for citrus. So potting soil, the Pro Mix, I used to pay outrageous price for it, but now the bales there's $17 at Walmart for the compressed bale. And Caldwell Nursery has top-notch potting soil. That's the cheaper stuff I use. Caldwell is on Band Road in Fort Bend County by the fairgrounds, and it's 6 acres, and I actually got lost in there one time. I couldn't find my car. I pulled back to load up a tree, and so it's an awesome nursery. The top-notch is cheaper stuff. And then Sungrow Professional Growing Mix, real expensive. I bought a big bag from Katie there at Caldwell. And then I found a little bag I'm going to try from Walmart. It's seed germinating mix. It doesn't have a lot of soil. It's really super fine. And it does great for seeds. And then Enchanted Forest, Enchanted Garden. Enchanted Forest is in Booth. Enchanted Garden is in Richmond. Yeah, Richmond. But those are all 3 really good nurseries. Of course, if you're not from Fort Bend County, you probably got your favorite in this area. But let me move along. So bumping up seedlings, 1 trade gallon containers. The first time I bought pots, I went to Southwest Fertilizer. I said, I want 1 gallon pots, and they sold me the true 1 gallon pots, which I still have because it's way too much soil. They're way too heavy for even a customer to carry. So I found out, talking to Tom, that the gallons we call gallons are called trade gallons. So they're not really a full gallon. So that's a trade gallon pot. And a customer sent me this Pluchia odorata picture, and I asked her, can I use that? It's one of the best pictures I ever had. That's an awesome plant, sweet scent. So I grow Pluchia every year. I've seen it in the wild down at Matagorda back behind the sand dunes. But I saw that in the wild. That's a green milkweed. You see how big that taproot is? I dug that thing up and put it in there, and you can see the one plant, and there's a little pup coming out the bottom of that root. But we were on Highway 25, and Susan dug one up to take home. And if you can picture a root that's like 2 tall boy beer cans stacked on each other, that's how big that thing was. And those roots go down to 8-10 feet. That's why you can mow them like they do in the ditch over there, and it won't kill them. I mowed 2 acres on my property in the fall, and about 100 of these popped up. They were just waiting for the right signal. And 100 green milkweeds popped up in that 2 acres, all the way up and down it. So anyways, the green milkweed is what I got there. A little harder to grow, and they need germination. So plant identification resources and seed suppliers, Ladybird Johnson Wildflower Research Center, wildflower.org. I love that place. You can put in a Latin or a common name and get to your plant. It also will link you to a USDA and different databases. that you can get off their database. You can't misspell stuff. That's the hard part. I had this Neely Sprangletop Lepticola neelii I collected for 3 years. I couldn't spell neelii right, so I never got a hit on it. And then, so Lan Shen took one. Is Lan still here? She took one to Dr. Brown to ID it. So I was growing this plant for 3 years before I knew what it was. Yeah, I got it at Armand Bayou. The guy just told me, oh, that's a nice wetland plant, neelii. And that's all he told me. And boy, it took 3 years and a lot of research to figure it out. But yeah. Native American seed. I don't buy many seeds anymore because of Nash and different prairies I can go to. The only problem I had with Native American is I grew out one of these little prairie packets and it had Alamo switchgrass in it, which came off a river where there's 4 inches of soil. Well, if you take Alamo cultivar that came from 4 inches of soil and plant it in our clay, it just goes berserk and it takes over. And I'm fighting this Alamo that I never wanted and never, so I can't even sell switchgrass because it crosses. And they grew plots of this too close to the other plot and they crossed. And so people buying switchgrass got Alamo by accident. And so I don't like cultivars. I like to grow things that are just the normal. A lot of cultivars, that one's aggressive. A lot of them, different coneflower cultivars and stuff, are short-lived. So I stick with wild collected seeds and plants. Oh, spider lois. I showed you that picture in the National Geo there of the spider lois at Brazos Bend. Now they make these fruits that are at the base of the flower. Right there's a green fruit. And you pick them up and you put them in a pan. Tom taught me this. And then see how that's turning yellow? That little plant comes up. It's going to use that fruit for its food. It's going to come up, grow. It's going to disappear. I got 2 pans this year. They're all disappeared right now. And in the spring, they're going to pop up again. And then I can pot them and distribute them or plant them and sell them. So the part about the fruit behind the flower, I read 4 books. It's not in any book. They say root division. They don't, not one book I've read, I looked up spiderly in 4 different books, ever mentioned the fruit behind the flower head, that the root comes out, it's kind of strange. Sometimes you don't see the root, it comes out of the bottom. Sometimes that root, you can see it coming out of that side and turning down. And Tom thinks it's because we reorient them to how they originally had fell on the ground. And so the root will come out the top, turn around, go down into the dirt, and then do the same thing. So right now I got 2 pans. They're all disappeared right now, and they're awesome plants. Then that's my card, Morning Star Prairie Plants, with my email. And my nursery's by appointment. I'm retired as of, God, this week will be 1 year. So anyways, I do this full time now. This is my job, and doing something you enjoy for a living, it's awesome. I don't make very much money at all, but it's fun. So anyways, here's some butterflies, and that is the monarch caterpillar that's on my apprentice in the pot. That zebra longwing, I've only seen this butterfly 3 times. This one came in my backyard where a lantana had popped up. And you see how they're using that's an old Leatrice? They're still using the plant. The butterflies, a lot of people just, like Wildscape Workshop, they want everything with color, and we don't sell a whole lot of grasses there. Well, where do they sit at night? They sleep on the grasses and the plants. And Susan has a Gulf muley in her front yard, and we're there in the evening, and all the butterflies are leaving the nectar plants and going on to the muley to spend the night. And you can see that at sundown. So, and Pennsylvania smartweed, Pennsylvania smartweed is duck food. I got a video, if I got enough time I'll show it. Whistling ducks were walking around on my roof of my house one day. And smartweed is duck food. Well, this strange looking weed with red and green different stems came up in Andrea's a vegetable garden, so I let it grow because I never saw anything like it. Well, Land remembers the original bush. It got about 4 feet wide and 4 feet tall, and it had every insect you can imagine on that thing. But they're annuals. And so, but ever since that first duck pooped that seed into her garden, it keeps coming up. So every year I dig them and pot them. And sometimes she gets a little impatient. She wants to put her tomatoes in there, and I haven't got them all dug out yet. So every year I dig them all out, pot them up, and then distribute them. It's an awesome native plant. It's gorgeous. And like I say, it'll have bees, native bees, these little wasps. It'll have butterflies and moths, and sometimes 6 things at once. So,
Can I ask you about the smartweed?
sure.
Do you grow it from seed too, or just?
Well, the seed I found was almost impossible to collect. I tried putting like a plate under one of the plants one time. I cut all the dried heads one time, put them on a tray. There was 0 seed in it. They're microscopic little shiny black things. So basically, this year, the one grew up in a fence line where I had some weed block where I got plants, and I swept that up underneath there. So I imagine I gave Tom a bag and I got a bag. I imagine there's some seed in that. But I mean, collecting seed, it's nearly impossible. And like I say, I waited till it was all dried or brown, and there was nothing in there, nothing. So this is the Monarch Festival. It got moved because of the flood this year, so this was the 2016. That's Catalina Trail, who discovered where the monarchs overwintered in 1974. She was on the cover of National Geo in 1975 in Michoacan, Mexico, and she's covered with monarchs from head to toe. She was 24 years old, and now she lives in Austin. She flags milkweed on the side of the road and calls the city and said, "You will not mow here," wherever you see her flags. So that's what she does now. So she came to our festival. I wasn't selling plants, I was just doing demonstration stuff here. And you could see, how many people came through there? You see the umbrellas? There's like 2,000 people. There was passing thunderstorms all day. It was just incredible. And you can see the umbrellas in the background around the butterfly garden that Andrea took over. It's at the windmill at the Brazos Bend. And she's pulling out all the Japanese stuff and putting in all the native plants. Because some of them, like a passion flower, if you see 3 lobes, it's native. If it's 5, it's been crossed with the Japanese. I actually won one here in a door prize years ago. It had 5 lobes. It made very few flowers. It ran across my fence, up my neighbor's roof. And I had to apologize and go cut it. And it had like only 5 flowers. It was crossed with a Japanese, 5 lobes. So 3 lobes native, 5 lobes non-native. So, and that's the end of the slides. Yeah, we got to call timeout. We're out of time.
Thanks, Mark.
So,
Thank you, Mark, very much.
all right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.